In today's global banking and finance environment, offshoring has become the norm rather than the exception. But while many organisations have mastered the operational mechanics of moving processes offshore, far fewer have mastered the art of building a high-value, high-trust partnership between offshore and onshore teams. And that's what this session is all about. We'll explore how an offshore finance operations team can establish itself, not just as a processing hub, but as a true extension of the business. We'll look at leadership, management, skill sets, and most importantly, mindset. And we'll talk about how to align performance, promotion, and culture across geography so that everyone, regardless of their location, feels part of the same organisation. So let's begin. Firstly, it all starts with adopting the right mindset. Be a partner, not just a processor. If an offshore team sees itself merely as a service provider, executing tasks, following instructions, then that's exactly how the onshore side will treat them. But if the offshore team takes ownership, thinks commercially, and positions itself as a partner, it completely changes the relationship. Instead of saying, "We process reconciliations for London," imagine saying, "We're responsible for ensuring reconciliations across the group are complete, accurate, and timely." Now, that subtle change in language reflects a much deeper sense of ownership. It signals that the offshore team isn't just following a checklist, they're ensuring business outcomes. And when leadership reinforces that message, that the offshore team is part of the same business working toward the same goals, it lays the foundation for genuine trust and collaboration. The key is this: you're not outsourced, you're extended. That's the mindset every offshore team should adopt from day one. Next, let's talk about management structure. A successful offshore setup should mirror the onshore governance model as closely as possible. Now that means if the onshore team has a regulatory reporting lead, the offshore team should also have one. If there's a product control head, there should be an offshore counterpart accordingly. Now this creates symmetry, it builds clarity, and it ensures accountability lines are clean, not blurred. Ideally, you'll have dual reporting lines, where an offshore manager reports functionally to their onshore counterpart, but administratively to local HR or site management. That's how you maintain both operational alignment and local support. Regular joint leadership meetings are also critical, monthly or even weekly. Now, these sessions shouldn't just review metrics. They should discuss challenges, future priorities, and how both sides can help each other succeed. And finally, encourage cross-pollination. A simple way to do this is to rotate staff for short secondments. An offshore lead could spend a few months onshore, or vice versa. It's one of the fastest ways to build mutual respect and understanding. When structure mirrors structure, people feel equal, and equality is the foundation of partnership. Next, let's move to leadership. The best offshore leaders are bridge builders. They're technically capable, of course, but more importantly, they're culturally fluent. They understand both sides, the offshore environment they lead and the onshore culture they serve. This is what we call cultural bilingualism, the ability to translate not just language, but expectation, tone, and intent. For example, when an onshore stakeholder says, "Can we speed this up?" a strong offshore leader interprets the underlying message. Is it urgency due to regulatory deadlines or frustration with visibility? Good leaders clarify, contextualize, and then communicate that intent clearly to their teams. Equally, they can manage upwards, raising local challenges or ideas to onshore leaders in a constructive, business-focused way. Whenever possible, give your offshore managers opportunities to spend time onshore, even for a few weeks. Seeing how business decisions are made, how meetings are run, and how stakeholders think gives them invaluable perspective. Strong leaders don't just manage operations, they connect cultures, and that's where the real value lies. Next, it's extremely important to focus on skill sets that build depth and breadth. Many offshore finance teams start out focused on execution, transaction booking, reconciliations, control testing, report preparation, and so on. Now that's fine for the early stages, But over time, to become truly valuable, the offshore team must evolve from processing to problem solving. That means building both depth and breadth of skill. Depth comes from mastering your core domain, whether it's treasury operations, regulatory reporting, or financial control. But breadth comes from understanding how your work connects to the rest of the organization. For example, if you're preparing liquidity reports, understand how treasury uses them to make funding decisions. If you're in product control, understand how your valuations impact risk and finance P&L. Encourage curiosity. Encourage people to ask why as much as how, and invest heavily in analytical capability. Train your teams on modern finance tools like Power BI, Alteryx, and Python. These aren't just buzzwords, they're enablers. They allow offshore teams to automate routine work and focus on insights instead. When you build these multi-domain, multi-skill capabilities, the offshore team becomes a center of expertise, not just a center of efficiency. Number 5, process ownership. Offshore teams need to move beyond SLA thinking. Traditional outsourcing models rely heavily on SLAs, or service level agreements. They track turnaround times, accuracy percentages, and error rates. And yes, these are important, but they only measure activity, not impact. To build a truly integrated model, offshore teams need to move towards outcome-based agreements. So instead of complete report X by 5 p.m, the focus becomes ensure all reconciliations are complete and breaks escalated before funding deadlines. Instead of prepare the liquidity return, make it ensure regulatory submissions are audit ready and data lineage is traceable. Now that change in framing shifts accountability from the process to the result. And when the offshore team is trusted to deliver outcomes rather than just tasks, it elevates their strategic value dramatically. Because the truth is, process excellence is expected. Outcome ownership is respected. Next up is communication. If there's one rule that defines successful offshore partnerships, it's this: communicate early, often, and openly. In the absence of information, people assume the worst, especially across time zones and cultures. So build transparency into the process. Share dashboards that track workflow volumes, completion status, and any exceptions. Use collaborative tools like Microsoft Teams, Jira, or Confluence to ensure everyone, onshore and offshore, is working off the same version of the truth. Regular check-ins are essential. Not micromanagement, but alignment. Encourage offshore teams to proactively update their onshore counterparts. Don't wait to be asked for progress, lead the communication. And when mistakes happen, as they inevitably will, own them quickly, explain what's being done to fix them, and share what's being learned. Over time, transparency builds confidence, and confidence builds trust. At number 7 is culture, motivation, and recognition. This is often overlooked, but it's one of the biggest reasons offshore models either thrive or fail. If promotions, recognition, and performance expectations differ between locations, even slightly, it creates resentment and disengagement. Now, to prevent that, the organization needs one unified people framework. That means a finance associate or an AVP role should mean the same thing globally. Same expectations, same competency framework, and the same potential for progression. Performance metrics should also be consistent. If onshore staff are measured on quality, control, and collaboration, then offshore staff should be too, not just speed or cost efficiency. Recognition also needs to be visible. When an offshore team delivers something impactful, perhaps a process automation or a major reconciliation fix, ensure that success is recognized publicly in company-wide updates, not just locally. And wherever possible, create hybrid project teams. For example, an onshore project lead working with an offshore project manager. When both sides work together on initiatives that matter, it reinforces equality and shared purpose. That's how you eliminate the us versus them mentality. Next is mindset shift from cost efficiency to capability center. In many organizations, the offshore team's original mandate is simple: reduce cost. But that's not enough anymore. The new goal should be to increase capability. Now, to do that, offshore teams can build centers of excellence, specializing in key areas like regulatory reporting, data management, or liquidity analytics. They can take ownership of process improvement, driving automation and workflow redesign. And they can act as training hubs, onboarding analysts who learn group standards before rotating into other regions. Now, the message to the wider business should be clear. We're not just a lower cost location, we're an engine of capability, innovation, and continuity. That kind of positioning attracts better talent, secures greater investment, and strengthens the organization as a whole. It's not about being cheaper, it's about being smarter. Next, let's talk about something a little softer, but no less important: culture. One mistake organizations often make is to overcorrect. In trying to make the offshore team feel global, they accidentally erase local identity. That's not the goal. Local culture is a strength. It's what gives teams energy, belonging, and pride. So celebrate local festivals, recognize cultural traditions, and make sure your local leadership presence is visible and respected. But balance that with global inclusion. For example, hold global town halls that feature both onshore and offshore speakers. Celebrate major milestones together, perhaps via virtual events or joint recognition programs. And even more importantly, encourage cultural exchange. Simple things like culture days, where each location shares food, customs, and stories, can go a long way to humanizing colleagues across borders. When people connect at a human level, misunderstandings disappear. And when misunderstandings disappear, collaboration thrives. And finally, in at number 10 is continuous feedback and improvement. Integration is not a one-off project, it's an ongoing commitment. Every quarter, conduct joint onshore-offshore reviews. Look beyond metrics, discuss what's working, what's not, and what could be improved. Use a simple traffic light system: red for problem areas, amber for things to watch, green for success stories. This simple discipline keeps alignment alive and ensures issues are surfaced before they become frustrations. Encourage open dialogue at all levels, from analysts to leadership. Offshore teams should feel comfortable providing feedback to onshore colleagues and vice versa. And importantly, act on that feedback. When people see that their input drives change, they become more invested in the partnership's success. So let's summarize what we've covered. Building a high-value offshore finance operations team isn't about process migration or cost savings. It's about creating a single, global team that operates seamlessly across borders. That means starting with the right mindset, thinking like a partner, not a processor. Building mirrored governance structures for clarity and equality. Appointing leaders who bridge cultures and connect intent with execution. Developing deep, multi-domain skill sets that support analytical insight. Moving from SLA-based tasks to outcome-based ownership. Communicating transparently and proactively. Aligning recognition, progression, and culture across geographies. Evolving from a cost center to a capability center. Balancing local pride with global unity. And finally, maintaining a continuous improvement rhythm through regular feedback loops. Now, when these elements come together, the offshore team stops being an auxiliary function and becomes an integral part of the organization's DNA. And when that happens, geography becomes irrelevant because value, trust, and excellence speak the same language everywhere. So if you're leading or building an offshore finance operation team, remember this simple equation. Shared governance plus shared goals plus shared recognition is what creates one global team. It's not about where you sit. It's about what you deliver, how you think, and how you collaborate. When those pieces align, the distance between onshore and offshore disappears. And what you're left with is one unified, world-class finance organization. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more videos just like this one. If you're keen to learn more about finance, be sure to check out the industryportal.com, link in the description below. Thanks so much for stopping by, and as always, keep growing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next video.